How is it there? Are the streets on fire? Are the people revolting? I mean, what's going on?
Well, I imagine for the moment the rioters are in bed after a hard night's work, but they'll be back out on the streets tonight for the fourth night. The violence is increasing in ferocity each evening. Last night there were 250 police officers injured, 670 arrests, God knows how much damage financially. And yeah, it seems to be spreading. And of course, Mike, this couldn't have come at a worse time for the authorities because the school holidays begin today. Apparently, reports in the French papers today saying most of the rioters are aged between 15 and 18. So they're going to have time in their hands in the next 2 months. They're quite well organised. The police have been surprised at how well organised they've been, but of course they're using social media platforms. So this is a real problem, and it hasn't been handled well by President Macron or his Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne, and really France is pretty anxious where this is going to end up.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, we're used to seeing Paris on fire in the summer. It's a sort of it's almost a hardy annual event. But this seems to be a bit more troubling for the authorities than the normal kind of rioting. It's not just the anti-globalists, it's not just the kind of balaclava brigade. The woman, the mother of the dead kid, was out yesterday as well, kind of, you know, commemorating his death. She looks a very, very, you know, decent, ordinary, you know, French woman, a mother. And so the people of Paris, presumably, are on her side.
Well, some of them are. I mean, it's really shown the divisions in France between the left and the right. The right, that's Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party, the centre-right Republicans, who I suppose are the equivalent of the Conservative Party. They are, well, obviously not condoning what happened on Tuesday, which is the police officer has been charged, I think, with voluntary manslaughter. But nonetheless, they say that the police have been under attack really for years, whether it's from Islamists, anarchists, yellow vests, radical environmentalists. They're under huge pressure. Last year, 46 police officers took their own lives. And the left, or the far left at least, really don't like the police. They never have. They think they're heavy-handed, particularly against people of ethnic minorities. So this is really, it's always been sort of a very tense situation, and the death of this 17-year-old has just ignited this anger and revealed the depth of the divisions within France. And Macron, as you said in the introduction, Mike, I mean, what on earth he thought he was doing, going to an Elton John concert on Wednesday evening when his country is burning, I do not know. He cut short this morning a trip to Brussels for a European summit, perhaps an indication of how grave the situation is. But really, this is going to be a huge test of his leadership. I wrote in the Spectator yesterday that I think probably this is the gravest challenge that he's faced in 6 years of tumultuous presidency. And is he up to it? We'll wait and see.
Well, I mean, he's not the most popular man anymore in France, is he? And I mean, the problem for him, I suppose, is that it's a very Marie Antoinette moment for him, isn't it? Let them eat cake, even though I know she didn't actually say that, for the pedants out there before they start correcting me. You know, there he is enjoying himself. We're seeing it now on the screen, watching all sorts of fireworks and light shows going off. And it's not a great look, is it?
No, it's not. And I make the point in the Spectator today that I compare it to Zelensky of Ukraine, who he has that touch. He knows how to talk to his people, how to present himself as a leader. Macron never has. He's got no idea how to communicate apart from to people like him, sort of millennial techies.
Yes.
And the working class are just a complete mystery to him. And so that's why he's so hated on both sides, the left and the right, in the inner cities. His government, his ministers aren't really any more popular. And so this is, I think, why it's such a volatile situation and why he's got to be very careful. He described the shooting as inexplicable, which angered the right, who said, well, you know, aren't you prejudging it? Let's see what happens when the officer is in court. And so he seems incapable of finding the right behaviour, the right rhetoric for any situation.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, that's the problem in this country as well, that almost all politicians now inside of the House of Commons, regardless of what party they're in, have no clue what ordinary people think. You know, we had this show yesterday. People were incandescent with rage at the Rwanda decision, at the fact that the Court of Appeal could just simply, you know, railroad their own version of what they think is the way to go forward, because they don't believe in sending people abroad, because they're worried that they might somehow end up back in the countries from whence they came. Well, I'm sorry, but that's the way it goes. If you illegally break into a country and if you find that you're no longer able to stay in that country, you get sent back from where you came. You know, the idea that these people think that that's a normal reaction is just ridiculous. It's just unbelievable. And our listeners and viewers were absolutely incandescent. You know, meanwhile, you go and look at news Question Time on the BBC, and everybody in their audience thought it was a bad idea to send people to Rwanda.
If you look at, going back to Zelensky, Mike, he's not a professional politician. He was an actor, a comedian. He came into politics, I think, in 2018. And I think the great weakness about the political class in the West today is that they all come from the same middle-class managerial background. They're all graduates from some university, and very few of them, I mean, Lee Anderson's an obvious example, have actually ever lived in the real world, among real people, and so they're completely out of touch. And this particularly in Britain, applies to not just to politicians, but to the much of the media class, the judiciary, and it's why I think Britain is in such a mess and France is in such a mess, because the political class, the ruling elite, are utterly out of touch with the majority of the people.
Absolutely right. And what about the situation with France and the migrants right now? Because obviously people were asking the question yesterday, what about all this money we've given to France, hundreds of millions of pounds? What are they doing with it? What are they doing about stopping the boats from actually leaving France? My answer, I suspect, is not very much.
Well, no, 40,000 police officers were on duty last night, Mike, across the country. I imagine that will be increased today. So I'm sure there's going to be a decrease in the number of police patrolling the Channel Coast down south in the Italian border. The number of migrants who have entered Italy in the first 5.5 months of this year, I think up to about the middle of June, 61,000. That's up 35,000 on last year. And now we're actually entering the boating season, the summer. So I reckon we're looking at around about 150, 200,000 coming across this year. Last year it was 100,000. Imagine if you're a migrant arriving in Italy, Mike, what are you going to do? Are you going to stay in Italy, where the government's introduced harsh new regulations this year? Are you going to go to France, where it's anarchy? Or are you going to head to England, where you get put up in a 4-star hotel?
Yeah, I mean, it's not much of a choice, really, is it? I mean, you know exactly where absolutely you're going to go.